What if a country could be drowning and blooming at the same time? This is Bangladesh. A nation smaller than your average US state, yet it holds more people than Russia and Australia combined. It's a place the news shows you floods, factory walls, and packed boats of those leaving. But step off the highway, leave the headlines behind, and you find something the cameras usually miss. Here, on a thin spit of land between a jungle and a bay, a grandmother plants rice while the tide licks her ankles. A boy rows a boat to school past half-submerged tombs, and a whole civilization has learned a strange, beautiful truth. How to smile while the water rises. So, if you're not in a hurry, take a moment. Stay with us, because what we're about to show you is not the Bangladesh of breaking news. This is the Bangladesh of quiet miracles. How did a city that floods twice a year become the spiritual heart of a nation? Old Dhaka doesn't have one holy site, it has 1,000. But its true center is not a temple or a church, it is the river. The Budi Ganga, Old Ganges, is both mother and threat. Here, 3 faiths have touched the same water for centuries. Hindus leave clay lamps at dawn. Muslims perform ablutions before the call to prayer. And Christians from the Armenian church on Armanatola Street still bless the river each Easter. This city has been ruled by Mughals, British, and Pakistanis. Yet every morning, a fisherman casts his net exactly where his great-great-grandfather did. You feel it immediately. This is not a place that survives. This is a place that refuses to sink. Let's walk the 3 faces of Old Dhaka. First, the Shankari Bazaar, the conch shell street. For 500 years, Hindu artisans have carved white shells into bangles for brides. That's not a relic, that's a living prayer. Each bracelet is blessed before sale, and each woman who wears it believes it carries the sound of the ocean and the goddess Lakshmi. Second, the Star Mosque, a tiny 18th century jewel. No golden domes here. Instead, hundreds of blue stars painted on white porcelain. The Imam still lights oil lamps every night. He says, "Stars are the lanterns of the poor. Allah gave them to everyone for free." Third, the Armenian church, almost forgotten. Only one caretaker remains, but step inside. The marble floor is worn smooth by feet that walked here 2 centuries ago. Three faiths, one street, no conflict. only the quiet hum of coexistence. Not all resilience is loud. In Bangladesh, there's a third gender, the Hijra. For centuries, they were respected as spiritual beings, invited to bless newborns and weddings. Then, colonialism arrived, and with it, shame. Today, an estimated 1.5 million Hijras live in Bangladesh. Most are rejected by their families. They survive by begging, dancing at truck stops, or giving blessings for a few taka. But here's what the news won't show you. In a tiny corner of old Dhaka, a Hijra elder named Rani runs a school. Not for math or science, for survival. How to apply makeup that says, "I am not afraid." How to clap in a rhythm that demands respect. How to look a man in the eye until he looks away. She tells us, we are the ones who were thrown into the river, but we learned to float. This is not a community asking for pity. This is a community that has turned rejection into a kind of fierce, glittering art. Now we leave the city. 2 hours south, the land begins to dissolve. The Sundarbans, the largest mangrove forest on Earth, a place where fresh water and salt water fight every tide, where the map changes every monsoon. This is sacred to no single god, but to every villager who lives at its edge, because the forest gives honey, wood, fish, and the forest takes tigers, cyclones, drowning. Here, a belief older than any religion survives. Bon Bibi, the lady of the forest. Muslims call her a saint. Hindus call her a goddess. Everyone agrees, if you enter the mangroves without praying to her, the tiger will find you. We follow a honey collector named Kalu. He's 62. He's lost 2 fingers to a crocodile. He still goes in. Before he steps off the boat, he lights a single incense stick and whispers, "Bon Bibi, I am poor. Let me come home." That is not superstition. That is a dialogue between a man and a world that could erase him at any moment. Two hours from the forest, a town called Bagarhat. It holds the 60-dome mosque, a 15th century wonder built by a saint named Khan Jahan Ali. No iron, no cement, just brick and terracotta and faith. But here's the contrast. That same saint dug a network of ponds and canals to give the town fresh water. 600 years later, those ponds are now brackish. The sea is rising. Salt poisons the rice paddies. We meet Fatima. She walks 3 kilometers each morning to a single freshwater tap. She carries a 20-liter jug on her head. She's been doing this for 18 years. But she also paints. On her mud wall, she draws fish and lotus flowers with crushed bricks and lime. She never learned to read, but she says, "When I paint, the salt goes away for a few hours." That is resistance through art. Not a gallery, not a hashtag, just a woman with a stick and a wall and an unbroken will to make something beautiful. We drive east, the water recedes, and we enter a different Bangladesh. Sri Mangal, the tea capital, not desert, but green silence. Here, the rhythm is not flood and survival. It is pluck, wither, roll, dry. There are 160 tea estates here. The workers are descendants of Adivasi communities, the Hisi, the Manipuri, the Tripura. They were brought by the British. They were never given land, only a small tin roof and a daily wage. But listen, at sunset, a young Hisi man climbs a hill and plays a bamboo flute. He plays the same melody his grandmother played. No one pays him, no one records him. He plays because the hills remember. He tells us, we are the ones who were not supposed to survive. That is the power of silence, not emptiness, but a fullness that has learned to keep its voice low. We return to the mangroves. Time, we wait for something specific, a tidal bore. A single wave that can reach 3 meters high. It forms when the lunar tide meets the narrow river mouths of the Sundarbans. Twice a month, it arrives like a wall. Science says it's a hydrologic phenomenon. Local people call it the tiger's tail. Here's the warning. Because sea levels are rising, the bore now pushes salt water 20 kilometers further inland than it did 20 years ago. Freshwater fish are dying. Rice fields are turning white with salt. We stand on a muddy bank as the bore passes. A man next to us, a fisherman named Jabbar, doesn't flinch. He says, "When I was a boy, the wave came every full moon. Now it comes every week. The river is angry, but we are still here." He walks back to his boat. The wave recedes, and for a moment, you understand climate change is not a graph. It is a fisherman who has memorized the moon, but can no longer trust it.
For centuries, this land has never been still. Rivers shifted without warning. Villages appeared, then disappeared. Empires came here, built cities, dug canals, prayed to the same waters. And eventually, they all had to leave something behind. Because in Bangladesh, nothing is ever truly permanent. Not land, not power, not even memory. But today, the pace of change is different. Faster, less forgiving. The rivers rise higher. The salt travels further inland. Storms arrive stronger and stay longer. What once took generations is now happening within a single lifetime. A farmer remembers when his field was green. Now it cracks white with salt. A fisherman remembers when the tide followed the moon. Now it comes whenever it wants. And yet, no one here is waiting for the water to stop, because they already know it won't. And And if things continue this way, millions will move, not across borders, but within them. From land to water, from certainty to adaptation. Entire communities will be rewritten, not by war, not by politics, but by the quiet persistence of rising tides. So this is the truth about Bangladesh. It is not just a country facing climate change. It is a country rehearsing the future. A place where the problems the rest of the world fears are already reality. And where the solutions are not theoretical. They are lived every day, in small decisions, in quiet resilience, in people who no longer ask if things will change, but how they will live when they do. Remember the boy rowing past submerged tombs, the grandmother planting rice as the tide touched her feet, the fisherman who no longer trusts the moon. This is what they understood all along, that stability was never promised, only the chance to keep going anyway. And maybe that's why, even as the water rises, life here doesn't disappear. It adapts, it shifts, it finds a way to bloom in the most uncertain ground on Earth.
There is another layer to this story, one that becomes clearer the longer you look. Bangladesh is not simply dealing with change, it is actively learning how to live with it. And that difference matters, because reacting to change is temporary, but learning how to live with it, that creates something lasting. In many parts of the world, change is still treated like an interruption, something unexpected, something to fix. But here, change is expected, planned for, built into everyday life. And you can see that in the way people make decisions. Take farming, for example. For generations, farmers relied on predictable seasons. Rain came at certain times, rivers rose and fell in familiar patterns. Crops were planted based on that rhythm. But that rhythm is no longer reliable. Rain can arrive too early or too late. Floods can last longer than expected. And salt water is moving further inland each year. So farmers are adjusting. They are changing the types of crops they grow. They are experimenting with new planting times. They are learning which fields can still produce food and which ones cannot. In some areas, rice farming is no longer possible, so people turn to shrimp farming instead. Shrimp can survive in salt water, rice cannot. But this shift creates new challenges. Shrimp farming changes the soil. It increases salinity even more, and over time, it can make it harder to go back to traditional farming. So every decision has consequences, but doing nothing is not an option. The same pattern appears in housing. In flood-prone areas, homes are built on raised platforms, sometimes made of earth, sometimes bamboo, sometimes concrete if people can afford it. When floods come, water flows underneath, not through. when water levels rise even higher, people adapt again. They raise the foundation, reinforce the structure, move to slightly higher ground. Not far away, just enough to stay connected to their land. Because leaving completely is often the last resort. And that leads to another major shift: movement within the country itself. Every year, large numbers of people move from rural areas to cities, not because they want a different lifestyle, but because their environment no longer supports the one they had. Fields become unusable, water becomes unsafe, storm damage becomes too frequent. So people relocate, but not across borders, within them. This creates pressure on cities like Dhaka. More people, more demand for housing, more demand for work, more strain on infrastructure. And yet, the city continues to absorb it. Informal settlements grow, new systems develop, people find ways to earn, build, and survive. It's not perfect, but it is functional. Because what is happening here is not random. It follows a pattern. Pressure increases, people adjust, new systems form, and then the cycle repeats. Over time, this creates a kind of resilience that is difficult to measure. Not because it's invisible, but because it's constantly changing. And that's what makes Bangladesh different. It's not stable in the traditional sense, but it is highly adaptive. So when we talk about the future, this place offers something important. Not a warning, but an example. An example of what happens when change is no longer avoidable, when adaptation is no longer optional. When people have to respond quickly, consistently, and creatively. At the same time, we're exploring them, one story at a time. Subscribe if you want to see what the world looks like beneath the surface. And tell us, what place should we uncover next?